Welcome into ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. Coming up on today's show, the Falcons are playing chess, not checkers, with Kaleb McGary. Trae Young is more important than you actually think. And last but not least, and for the culture, Ocho Cinco got a job. That's all coming up next right here on ATL Day Ones. Let's go.
This is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
I want to start off by saying thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. Remember, we are free and available wherever you download your podcast. And wherever you download your podcast, make sure that you leave us a 5-star review. Really appreciate that from you in advance. Today's episode of ATL Day Ones is brought to you by FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Make every moment more and visit FanDuel.com today to get started. But I want to welcome in my main man, the man with the master plan, my man, Sam Crenshaw, is joining me today. Tenitra is still out. She'll be back with us on Monday.
Are you sure she's going to be back?
I don't know, man. You know, she feels, it seems like she's getting a little comfortable, taking all the days off, Sam. So I don't know. I might have to give her a little flack, when she said, hey, Jarvis, I need these days off. So, but hopefully she'll be back on Monday, joining us and talking some good Atlanta sports. But Sam Crenshaw, for those you don't know, where have you been, by the way? Because this man is at least 30-year veteran in the sports broadcasting industry, former television anchor, still television anchor to this day, long time television anchor, HBCU aficionado. How about this? A high school football almanac in the state of Georgia. Like Sam is my guy. I actually call him the mayor. So if I refer to him as the mayor of Atlanta, y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, Sam, welcome to the program, man. Thank you for jumping on with me today.
Hey, Jarvis, always great to spend some time with you, man. I appreciate the invite. Great to see you as you're doing great things. I'm tremendous, always proud of you and what you've done. I've watched and watched you grow and your climb, and I'm proud of the way you're continuing to climb, brother.
My man, I appreciate that. I appreciate it. But we talking about these Atlanta Falcons trying to climb now. Let's talk about that because they haven't been in the playoffs in 5 years, Sam, and they are trying to make some moves that are necessary so they can have some long-term success. And I think that with this particular move in Kaleb McGary, they did not place the franchise tag on him. So I think that with this move, though, Sam, this is one of those moves where they are playing the smart game. They're playing the long game and saying, hey, okay, we want you to come back, but we ain't trying to give you no $18 million and negotiate down. Well, we have a set number in our heads, and that's the number that we're willing to give. And I think that, I think the Falcons did the right thing by not placing that franchise tag on Kaleb McGary. What are you?
Well, you know what? If you had said this to me about a week or two into the season, last season, I would say, okay. But, man, the way this line ended up playing, and the struggles they've had, I'm feeling a little possessive over these dudes, man. I'm feeling a little possessive. I'm feeling a little protective right now, because we know how much the offensive line has struggled. Our expectations weren't the best for them going into last season, and as the season went on, we got a 1,000-yard running back out of a rookie. We saw some things last season that we hadn't seen in a while. Now we do want better pass protection, but we got a moving target right now. We don't have a stationary quarterback. We got a guy that's moving, and while we still want to see more of him, we still want to see more of the young linebackers mature. We still want to see what happens with some healthy folk in the back end of the secondary. We want to see how Kyle Pitts returns from his injury. That's a lot of if we want to see. We saw what this line can do, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We saw what this line can do and the opportunity that it gives us. And we also know that is our head coach's mentality, that he wants that as a part of the culture, that he wants desperately. Now, we talk about the cash, and Falcons got cash to spend, but we feel like the other side of the line is probably where you're going to really put that cash as far as free agency goes. And you're going to want to spend some on your O-line, especially if McGary does go. But I like to think that he will feel a little loyalty to this team. We've been patient with him, doggone it. We've been patient with him. He's been hot and cold.
Right.
He's been hot and cold. You know what I mean? It's about time he played.
Yeah.
And so for that reason, I'm curious to see what he does. If he's so anxious to go and seek some other place, when this place has been patient with him and the fan base has been patient with him. And he finished the season so strong. And that's the reason why you hate to give up on something like that. But doggone it, we've been patient with him. And, you know, and I know it's a business. I know it's a business. He's in the prime time right now. He's healthy, you know, and whatnot. And that's been one of the big things with him always since he landed here.
And
but you want to go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I understand what you're saying when you're coming from, when you're talking about like, hey, you don't want to mess up a good thing. But for me, it's hard for me to forget those first 3 years, right? Like you were terrible. I'm sorry. I'll go ahead and say it. You know, I know, Sam, you're a nice dude, but that dude was not good his first 3 years. But the thing about it that is, I get a little nervous when guys finally figure out what they need to do in order to be better or to be able to sustain themselves in the NFL and get a second contract. And it seems like he didn't figure that out until after his third year. So, like, I don't know if I can trust that or invest in you long term and pay you like a top 10 tackle, you know, just off GP, because like those first 3 years are in the back of my mind. Like it's hard for me to forget that. I become a scorned woman when it comes to that type of stuff, Sam.
But you know what? We're in Atlanta. I've been around Atlanta a long time, and a lot of times we're giving up on guys just in time to go and see them go someplace and become all world. And that's the thing he's showing us signs of last year. That he's primed to get this contract, go somewhere, and take off and be this Pro Bowler. Possibly that we anticipated he might be when he was drafted originally on this team. So that's the thing that they have to decide. Like I said, I'm a little protective. I love having a 1,000-yard running back. I love what that does for this young quarterback coming in to work on, especially since it seems like we're not going to go out and bring somebody in to be a starter. It looks like we're not going to do it. And the division just got interesting with the addition down in New Orleans of what they solidified their quarterback situation. So that's the thing. You want to have the necessary infrastructure around our quarterback if he's the one we're going to stick with. And having that line stay congruent and together and continue to grow is a big part of it.
Yeah, it's definitely a big part, because one thing about, like, you don't have to have a lot of great guys up front. You got to have a cohesive group of guys that are used to playing with each other. And then when you, like you said, that's stuck with me. That's some wisdom right there. Like, when you get something good, you cultivate that thing. You don't break that bad boy up. But we'll see how that works out once the new league year starts on the 15th, actually next week. So we'll have our answers pretty quickly as far as whether or not Kaleb McGary is going to be in a black and red uniform next year. But speaking of somebody who's not in the black and red uniform anymore, Calvin Ridley. Sam, I don't know about you, man, but when all of these rumors about what was going on with Calvin Ridley in the previous season, not last year because he was suspended for last year, but the season prior to him getting suspended by the league, there were just so many rumors flying around and so many things about what he was going through. And then I actually got a chance to talk to him right before the London game, and it just seemed like something was wrong with him. And then for him to come out and write this story in the Players Tribune, I really feel like it was probably cathartic for him. But I think just from an Atlanta sports fan, I was just like, man, like, dude, I totally understand. And I wasn't hard on him back then, so it's not necessarily any guilt there. But I just think that a lot of people probably got some good insight into actually what he was going through by writing this piece on the Players Tribune.
Jarvis, I'm going to tell you something. My first encounter with Calvin Ridley was not at Flowery Branch. My first encounter with him was at Truist Park. And talk about a guy who came to the city with great intentions and was excited about being in Atlanta. He was out for a Braves game. They brought him out. It was not long after he got drafted. I think he come in town and had his press conference, and the Falcons sent him out to the ballpark, and he's out the Braves. And I'm there in the dugout. He walks up, and I said, "Hey, how you doing? Like, welcome to town." I said, "They have this guy out here that runs every night called the Freeze." I said, he says, "I heard about him. I want to race him." I said, "Yeah, I get you. Yeah,
I love it, man.
I love it. I love a guy who comes to a city. He's studied the landscape. He knows what's happening here, and he wants to plug himself in. He won me over. You won me over, Jarvis.
Yeah.
And so it was tough to see him go through what he went through. I hope that a lot of people will look at it a little bit of a different eyesight. We're still going to look at it because of what could have been. If you imagine him now with a quarterback that moves, with a young tight end and another wide receiver on the other side, what he could be with this team right now. It leaves us thinking some stuff. But to hear it from him, what was happening with him and the story inside, I think makes it a little easier for us to digest and to understand.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am with it as well, because like I said, like he was a guy that was always willing to talk, man, just to talk ball and everything in the locker room and everything like that. And you really appreciate that. I know a lot of people I feel like that's kind of a big deal, but there are some guys who just don't like talking to the media. And so for him to be as gracious with his time as always, and just for him to be able to open himself up to kind of like, hey, I understand I messed up, but here's some background on what I was going through. And he definitely didn't have to do that, but I could definitely appreciate him for bearing his soul, so to speak, through print like that. But think of one of the things, Sam, is that's been very interesting to me as I was watching the game last night with the Atlanta Hawks, is the fact that Trae Young out here playing some defense. We'll talk about that next. But first, I gotta tell you guys about FanDuel. You trying to win some money? Sam, you can do this too now. For all the new customers, they got the no sweat first bet up to $1,000 if you lose your first bet. So if you lose your pants out there, you about to be taking out a house and home, they got some little money right there waiting for you, just for you. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So, tomorrow night against the Wizards, are you trying to figure out whether or not Dejounte Murray is going to shoot the over or under on how many threes? You can bet on that. They got the money line and the point scorers as well. So they got each and everything that you need to in order to win some money. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. So don't miss the chance for your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
That's right on time for March Madness, man. Right on time for March Madness.
Yeah,
My goodness.
come on, man. Like it's so many things to bet on. So go out there and go win some of that money. Now don't lose your pants now, because it's on after the first bet.
We did not tell you to do that. We did not tell you to do that.
Like don't go crazy. Now we want everybody to win around here on ATL Day Ones. But Sam Crenshaw joining me is filling in for Tenitra today. She will be back with us on Monday. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. Now, Sam, the Atlanta Hawks get a dub last night, 122-120 against the Washington Wizards on the road with their pink uniforms. I'm still trying to figure that one out. I'm not quite sure what the deal is or the direction.
It wasn't a great look.
Yeah, man, I'm still trying to figure that out. But I think one of the things that stood out to me, and even Quinn Snyder even talked about this in the post game, as far as what it is that's needed in order for them to win on a nightly basis. And I think I figured this thing out. And when it involves Dejounte Murray as well. Trae Young had 3 steals last night, Sam. Dejounte Murray had 3 steals. Dejounte Murray getting 3 steals, not that big a deal. But if Trae Young is out there getting 3 steals and he's hitting his shots, I think that's the key. That's the formula in order for the Hawks to show some consistency, is Trae locking in on defense. Not locking down, folks. I didn't say that. I just say locked in, just staying focused. And I think that's one of the things that I feel like the Hawks are going to have to do if they want any chance of getting to the actual playoffs, not the play-in, the playoffs.
Absolutely. And I think that was the intention when the season began, was for he and Murray to really mirror each other in their performance, not just in their point production, but in every way. And if they're on the same page doing that, the Hawks are a very difficult team to beat. I don't care who you are. But we've had trouble getting that consistently on a nightly basis, even some nights when they're both on offensively. Like you said, one is on defensively more so than the other. It takes both of them being plugged in the same way. And like I said, that combination of them playing well offensively and defensively. You throw in that Clint Capella double-double. That's winning games most nights.
Man.
That's winning games. And that's what makes this team the dangerous team that we all feel like they should be.
Yeah, and that's the thing as far as with me. Like I feel like one of the reasons why Quinn Snyder went on ahead and jumped in right now. Like he ain't stick his toe in the water. He just jumped in. You know, he went skinny dipping. he went skinny dipping and said, "Hey man, I'm about to jump all in and try to see what's going on with his team." That's why I really appreciate him for doing that, because you can see. I don't know about you, but I really see him getting that connection with guys like Trae, with guys like Dejounte Murray, and more importantly, a guy who I feel like is pretty much on the block. I know he's been on the trading block for the past few years, and John Collins, but I think this year, this regime, I don't know if he sticks around, but I think one of the things another thing that he said, and he's talking about, he had a conversation with John Collins. Now go back to the Miami Heat game, and that was one of the things that I pointed out I thought that really stood out, was the fact that he wasn't in the rotation. John Collins wasn't even in the game at 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. And the one thing that I said I really respect about Quinn is the fact that he said he had a conversation with John about that. And John said, "I understand." And then he had a conversation about the game last night when John went out there and hit, 4 threes last night?
Yeah.
And he has been shooting terribly from the arc. So I think that the relationships that he's building right now are going to be so valuable, not just for this season, but going forward, Sam, and whether or not they actually keep him around. I think it's going to be nothing but good as far as what Quinn Snyder is doing right now, as far as establishing some rapport with these guys and being honest with them.
And Jarvis, I think you go back to this man's who's poured into Quinn Snyder, and I covered the last year he played up at Duke. When I was working in North Carolina. And you got to remember the influences he had on his life. Mike Krzyzewski, and he was here under Mike Budenholzer. Of course, that's part of Mark Popovich.
Right.
So talk about mentors and influences. You know what I mean? Very important, the coaching trees that he's a part of. 2 legends, 2 Hall of Famers, 2 all-time great coaches are part of the resources. And obviously people he can reach into, but people that he has taken things away from to bring to the mix for this particular team. Now, it prepares him for this type of situation with a young team. I still say this team misses a veteran voice in the locker room, and I think that makes such a difference. I think it's underrated to not have that veteran voice. Gallo wasn't gone, Lou Williams wasn't here for this season. One of those 2 guys in that locker room, to me, makes a difference. Say, "Hey, come here, close the door, coach. We'll be back in a minute," and get the guys in there and do that. There's nobody to do that. We got some great athletes, some great young basketball players, not a lot of experience in where we hope they're going to go, to have somebody. And I go back to the old Hawks team when we had like Josh Smith and all the Zaza and Marvin Williams, and they plug in Mike Bibby. Mike Bibby came in, and all of a sudden that team came together, became a very dangerous team. It's something to be said for having that veteran voice that everybody respects in that locker room. For that reason, I kind of wish they would have brought Lou Williams back as almost a player/coach, because when the team took off, remember, he had joined the team.
Yeah.
And when Nate McMillan became the coach and that team took off to go to the Eastern Conference Final, to remind them this is what you did to get there. A lot of stuff has happened since this time. A lot of folks got some nice long-term contracts. Their pockets have got nice and heavy.
Everybody eating good.
Everybody eating good, right? Good. Bought new houses out in California.
Yeah,
and all that
man.
On, right? You know what I mean? So to me, you need somebody in there they're going to respect and listen to say, this is what got you where you are. John Collins definitely needs to hear that, because he's gotten away from the guy that made him have the trade value. What is his trade value now compared to a couple of years ago? So that's the thing. They needed that voice, and I don't know how you make up for that. I don't know how Quinn Snyder makes up for that. Nate McMillan definitely. Nate McMillan, we're almost making him sound like Lenny Wilkins. Well, Lenny Wilkins was coaching. He didn't trust any young players. Poor Jason Terry couldn't get on the court. Well, he loved, Tyrone Corbin and Mookie and Smitty, those old veteran guys.
Yeah,
you know what
man.
I mean? So that's what it almost makes McMillan look like.
Yeah, and that's the thing that and another thing is that's interesting that you brought it up, because I feel like a lot of times, like when we when I bring out certain things about, Quinn Snyder, as far as what I see and what I like, it's almost kind of like, oh, this was what Nate McMillan wasn't doing. You know what I'm saying? It ain't necessarily like that, but like a lot of times when you think about, what Nate McMillan brought to the table, he was in that locker room when Lloyd Pierce was in it. It was stupid toxic. Like nobody liked Lloyd Pierce back then. So, and he was sitting up here, okay, he was not necessarily like he was just waiting on to pounce on a man's job when he got fired, but he was sitting up because there was some conversation to be had as to whether or not he'd be willing to take it because, he and Lloyd Pierce had established a nice rapport with each other. So, but I think that when him being right there and seeing what was going on in the locker room, he can basically say, hey, I can just do the exact opposite, and then I can, maybe we can do something. That's what he did. But when it comes to Quinn Snyder, man, I think Nate McMillan's a solid coach, and he's not a bad coach. Like bad coaches don't get their teams to Eastern Conference Finals. It just doesn't. It just doesn't happen like that. You could say luck, whatever, however, matchups, all that good stuff. They ended up winning, and he was the head coach for that. So you have to give him some credit. But I'm really on board with, hey, Quinn Snyder, this is what Quinn Snyder is doing going forward, and it's not necessarily any type of shade thrown towards Nate McMillan as a coach.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's good things. Let's see now if this Hawks team can sustain something. Let's get a string going. You've beaten this team once. You got them coming up again. And they're a little deceptive. You forget who all they have on their roster, talking about the Wizards. You forget who they have.
Kristaps,
and you wonder,
Kuzma.
Right. And when people talk about teams in the East, you don't even hear people mention these guys. They threw a pretty good lineup out there.
Yeah, they got some guys that can get buckets, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yes, but speaking of some production, Chad Ochocinco, Sam, that man got a job now, and we heard it's down in Florida, but he got on some different colors that he probably had never really put on before, and not to be officially anyway. We'll talk about that, but first. We have to talk about Locked On Sports Today. You guys been checking us out, making us your first listen today, ATL Day Ones, that is. Why don't you go ahead and check out Locked On Sports Today and make it your second listen of the day. They are free and available wherever you download this podcast. And you can go check them out right there and get all the national news of the day. But, Sam, this is for the culture. It is the intersection between sports, entertainment, and the culture. Sometimes whatever the hell we want to talk about. Because that's just how we get out on this show.
Right.
Today is no different. Chad Ochocinco, Chad Johnson, for some of you folks who don't acknowledge that's his real name or whatever. He changed his name to that. He is going to be an ambassador for the FAMU Rattlers. Now, I know a lot of people are probably saying, okay, where's the connection? For those you don't know, Chad will tell anybody that was willing to listen that he grew up going to those classics with his grandmother, and the first time that he went to the game was 1984. So, and I experienced the HBCU homecoming for my first time. It was down in Morehouse. I was 17 years old, and I understand where Chad is coming from. So I understand why he had a love and affection for FAMU University. But shout out to Coach Willie Simmons and AD for getting this thing down and trying to figure out how to connect and partner with this with a guy that is very well known throughout the football community.
Yep, and throughout the state of Florida. When you think about it, it's not the first time he's had to dealing with those colors now, but it was at the opposite end of the state. So that's the other thing when you talk about trying to keep some of the talent home, which is something that Florida A&M had a history of years ago. But we're going back to the days of Jake Gaither, and that's why he had three strings deep down there, because he had the state on lockdown. Those players were not leaving the state of Florida. They were coming to Florida A&M. And I like what Coach Simmons has steadily done. And I think that this could be their season. Of course, they moved to the SWAC, and just when the SWAC got really tough, but, we got to tip our cap to that conference. They've held together. They've had no defections. No teams have left that conference. The value is up so much that the conference commission is getting sued. We ain't going to go down that slippery slope. But there's a value in broadcast rights. Who knew that was value? We thought people felt like there was no value at all for HBCU athletics and broadcast rights. Now we got folks actually fighting over it. It's an amazing time, and what a time for Ocho Cinco to drop in. And hopefully that's something that will spark something, Jarvis, with some other recent NFL players of note. If you don't have the time to make the commitment to go in and be a part of the coaching staff, there's still a role that you can play that brings something to the HBCU, athletic departments and to the football programs. I hope that this caused some other ones. Maybe everybody doesn't have the time to make the commitment that Deion Sanders made. They don't have the time to do what's happening over at Tennessee State, to make the commitment to come in and be a head coach. But to come in and play a role with the program, I think is tremendous.
Yeah, I am very, very on board with that, because at the end of the day, man, like, I know playing in HBCU at Albany State University, shout out to Golden Rams, all my people out there. Y'all
got new coach. Y'all got new coach.
Yeah, we got a FAMU alum in Quinn Gray. Yeah. Quinn quarterback, played for the Jaguars. Oh, he was in the league for 5 years. Solid player, really good player, by the way, coming out of FAMU. So, we're around the same age. So I definitely was paying attention to Tallahassee when I was maybe about an hour and a half up the road.
Yeah.
But, I wasn't really necessarily paying attention to Quinn, but, I knew what was going on down there at Tallahassee.
Absolutely.
But,
absolutely.
But before we get out of here, Sam, I got to talk to you about Shawn Kemp and what went down. So apparently he had got into somebody in a shopping mall parking lot, and then I saw the video this morning of him essentially just walking up to the car and just firing a shot. And from what the report's saying is that he felt like that those people had stole something from him. Now, former athlete, gun, they stole something from me. Like, man, this is so similar to this other dude. Now, Shawn
he's a big
do what
dude,
he did.
Yeah, but Kemp can't get away. But he's about 6'9", dude, man.
Yeah,
He can't get away with stuff like that. And I don't know what provokes him to that point.
That's a weird situation, though, right? Yeah.
It really is. It's a strange situation, and I'm anxious to hear what all comes up as to what got to that point. But still, someone of his notoriety and someone that community has embraced long after the team is gone. The community there still embraces him. To me, you have to have some forethought before you do the things that you do in that regard. So we'll see what happens with the Rain Man. As he was called back in the day. But you heard someone say, it's alarming because the big news has been one of our current stars in Ja Morant, a guy that we think will, eventually be one of the faces of the league, of the NBA.
Absolutely.
And
he's got that level of talent, yes.
Yeah, and that's and he's got that kind of talent, that kind of bravado, that kind of excitement, that kind of charisma that people get excited about genuinely wherever they come to town. It makes you hate that Atlanta's so close to Memphis, but they're in the West, so we only get one visit a season from these guys. I would love that Memphis and the Hawks could have like a rivalry, but we can't because we're the East and they're the West. Right. You hope that things clear up and some things that you hear maybe not as bad as people think. Yeah, but using your hands and not being discreet and holding a gun and letting people see it is something something you just got to be smarter than that. You got to be smarter than that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that talking about. Shawn Kemp, I know I joked about it, but I think it's something that's real. Like, you don't want to be in a situation where, people are like, oh, yeah, you remember such and such? Yeah, he got into some trouble again with a gun. Speaking about Ja Morant, that is. Because, Shawn Kemp was an amazing, explosive basketball player, super uber talent. And Ja Morant, same thing. You don't want to end up in a situation where wondering what could have been, because how things went for Shawn Kemp in his career, and I don't want to see that again when it comes to Ja Morant. So hopefully this time off, he'll take this time off to kind of really just put things in perspective and hopefully move forward, man. Because playing around with guns in the clubs and stuff, man, I've lived that life. Not carrying guns, but I used to work security in my previous life, so I know how that story ends every time, and it's not good. It's not good. It's never good. Positive at all.
No. So we want to see him clear that up.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, Sam, man, I don't know. They say time flies when you're having a good time, so
or a good conversation.
No doubt about it, man. I appreciate you coming on with us today, and then we also thank you for listening to ATL Day Ones and making it your first listen. Like I said, always, after you make your first listen, ATL Day Ones, go ahead and stop by Locked On Sports today. They got all the national news. They even had the taker of the day, where you don't know what they could be talking about. They could be talking about Sean Kemp pretty soon, I'm sure. So you can find it wherever you find this podcast. And Sam, I always tell people, each and every day, if there's one thing that they don't do, I want to make sure that they share love, show love, and most importantly, spread love.